Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadi alladhina istafa amma ba'd. قال تعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال يا موسى إني استفيتك على الناس برسالتي وبكلامي فخذ ما آتيتك وكن من الشاكرين صدق الله العظيم. Dear respected brothers, elders, sisters, and anybody that's listening, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yesterday we talked about Prophet Musa alayhi salam and Prophet Harun alayhi salam and the challenges they faced with the tyrant king Fir'aun and how they overcame Fir'aun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed miracles and signs to Prophet Musa alayhi salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala drowned Fir'aun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved the Bani Israel from this tyrant and his oppression. Today we're going to talk about Musa alayhi salam and the Bani Israel, the clan of Bani Israel. Remember, I said to you that Israel was another name for Yaqub alayhi salam, and he had 12 sons so they were known as Bani Israel. So the descendants of Yaqub alayhi salam are known as Bani Israel, the children of Israel. So there are 12, in the Bani Israel there were 12 groups, there were 12 tribes. So they were all belonging to the Bani Israel. So the Bani Israel, they were very mischievous people, they're very silly people, foolish people. They didn't appreciate the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon them. They tested Prophet Musa alayhi salam in every kind of way. And they were very ungrateful and they transgressed the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So today we're going to talk about Bani Israel. And some of those traits still appear in the people today. So Musa alayhi salam and the Bani Israel, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved them and they crossed the sea. After crossing the sea, the Bani Israel saw a group of people that they were worshipping idols. So they said to Musa alayhi salam, "O Musa alayhi salam, make a god for us like they have gods." Subhanallah, just think, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved Bani Israel from the oppression of Fir'aun and the Egyptians. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed them such a big miracle where the sea parted, they crossed, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala drowned Fir'aun and his army. And after crossing the sea, they saw people idol worshipping, and they said to Musa alayhi salam that make a god just like they have so that we can worship. Just think what must have come upon Musa alayhi salam. He replied, "Innakum qawmun tajhalun." You are really ignorant people. What these people are engaged in will all be destroyed. It's all false worship. It's idols that are made with your own hands. Whereas we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of all the worlds. But for them to come out with such a claim, after witnessing such a miracle, you can just imagine what must have gone over Prophet Musa alayhi salam. So as they were walking along, remember there was about 600,000 Bani Israel with Musa alayhi salam. They've crossed the sea. Now as they're walking along, they were all thirsty. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered Musa alayhi salam to tap his staff onto the rock, and from this rock there came 12 springs, 12 fountains of water, one for each tribe of Bani Israel, and they all drank till their fill. They were hungry. They asked Musa alayhi salam, "We're hungry, we want some food." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala delivered to them divinely food from the heavens, man and salwa. Look at the blessings upon Bani Israel. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala feeding them, Allah has given them water. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of the greatest prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved them from the oppression of Fir'aun and the Egyptians. But they were still ungrateful. As they were outside Jerusalem, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered them to enter Jerusalem. But they refused. They said, the people in Jerusalem, they're very tough and hard. We're not going to fight them. If you want to fight, you and your Lord go and fight whilst we stay here. They refused the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They said, we're not going to go. Allah promised Jerusalem to them. Allah Ta'ala promised the victory to the Bani Israel. But they refused. They said, no, you and your Lord go and fight. We're going to stay here. Because of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them refugees for 40 years. On this piece of land, they were just lost in this wilderness. Every time they wanted to go towards a destination, they wouldn't reach that destination. They would just come back to the beginning. So they were refugees, homeless for 40 years. This was the punishment for disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So afterwards, the Bani Israel, they said to Musa alayhi salam that you should give us some kind of religious law that we can obey and follow. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He called Musa alayhi salam to Mount Tur. Initially for 30 days and then a further 10 days. So a total of 40 days. So when Musa alayhi salam left the Bani Israel, he left Harun alayhi salam in charge that to take care of the Bani Israel whilst I'm gone. And he told his people that I will be back after 30 days. So after 30 days passing by, the Bani Israel asked Harun alayhi salam, where's your brother Musa? He said 30 days. He's not back. As the days started to increase, 31, 32, they go, where's your brother? He hasn't come back. Where is he? So there was a man called Samiri. He was a sorcerer. What he did, he deceived the people of Bani Israel. He made the image of a calf out of the ornaments of the Bani Israel. So this was hollow, and what happened was that every time a wind would pass through it, it will make a sound. And he invited the people to worship this calf. So Samiri misled the Bani Israel. It is said in the books that only 70 people refused and they continued to worship Allah, but the rest, they started worshipping the calf. So Samiri, the sorcerer, he misled the people. After misleading the people and the people now worshipping the calf, Musa alayhi salam, he returns back to Bani Israel. And when he returns, he sees that the people are worshipping the calf and they've stopped worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're doing shirk. So Musa alayhi salam destroyed the calf. And he taught the people, if this was your God, he should have been able to save himself. The calf should have been able to save itself. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished Samiri that anything that touched him or he touched anything, it would harm him. So anyway, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He blessed Musa alayhi salam with the tablets, the Torah, the instruction, the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Musa alayhi salam conveyed to his people that we must follow the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But look at the arrogance of Bani Israel. They said, we'll see the commandments. Whichever we like, we will act upon. And what we don't like, we will ignore them. Musa said, no. You need to obey all the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you people so much You need to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they ignored Musa. They said, no, what we like, we will act upon. What we don't like, we will not act upon. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He raised a mountain above the head of Bani Israel. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala threatened to crush Bani Israel. And Musa asked them, now, are you going to act upon the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or are you going to refuse? They all said, we're going to act upon the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just think to what levels these people stoop so low, the Bani Israel. How much they tested their prophets. How much signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala they witnessed but they ignored. Then a group of them, they said, oh Musa alayhi salam, you talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We want to witness this. We want to see that how you talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a group of 70 of them was selected. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was conversing to Musa alayhi salam, they witnessed this. After witnessing this, they said, yes, but we didn't see Allah ta'ala. We heard Him, but we didn't see Him. Just think what anger they must have caused Musa alayhi salam. The sign, the symbols of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but still they're pushing the boundaries. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused a thunder and all 70 of them were killed. Now Musa alayhi salam, he was worried, if I return back to the Bani Israel, they will say, where are the 70 people gone? So he prayed to Allah, oh Allah, please revive these people. Otherwise my people will lay blame upon me. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala one by one brought them back alive. So each one of them could witness another miracle. That how Allah gives death, Allah can revive people as well. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed them so many examples, so many miracles. But these people kept on pushing the boundary. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered them on the day of Sabbath, on Saturday, that they were not allowed to trade. They were not allowed to buy or sell. But even then, they would make plans and plot, and they would do ways that they would try to trade on the day Saturday. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turned some of them into apes. Then they came to Musa alayhi salam. They said, oh Musa alayhi salam, we're tired of man and salwa. We want some other crops from this world. So Musa alayhi salam said, Allah's blessed you with man and salwa, divinely food, and you want the food of this world. You know, it was you just can't imagine how low these people were stooping. They accused Musa alayhi salam that he had a disease. He had an illness and we should stay away from him. The rumors broke out among the Bani Israel that Musa alayhi salam had a skin disease. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one day Musa alayhi salam was taking a bath behind some rocks. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removed that rock and the people saw that Musa alayhi salam is fine. There's nothing wrong with his skin or his body. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cleared these accusations. How far they stooped, how low the Bani Israel went. One day there was a wealthy man amongst them who passed away, so his son, he inherited all the money. But now the cousins, they became jealous of him and they murdered him. But now they wanted to know who actually murdered this person. So they came to Musa alayhi salam, said, find out from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who murdered him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered them to slaughter a cow. And they were, we asked you to find out who murdered, and you're telling us to slaughter a cow. So all they had to do was slaughter a cow. But then they said, but what kind of cow should it be? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered them that they shouldn't be too old and shouldn't be too young. So they should have gone ahead and found such a cow. But no, the Bani Israel then asked Musa, what color should it be? So Allah Ta'ala revealed it should be yellow in complexion. So then they still come back to Musa, but we're still confused. We're still not sure what kind of cow it should be. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to them, it shouldn't be used, it should have no spots on it. So they were just told to slaughter a cow, but they kept on questioning Musa alayhi salam. So when they finally did slaughter a cow, they were ordered to get this part of the meat of the cow and lay by the person that was murdered. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revived the dead person, and he gave the answer who killed him, and then he passed away again. So they found out who the murderer was. So all these symbols, all these signs, all these miracles the Bani Israel witnessed. But they were very mischievous, they were very silly in their behavior, they were very disrespectful towards the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They weren't grateful of the ni'mats of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed them. One day the people, they asked Musa alayhi salam, who is the most knowledgeable person? So Musa salam replied, I am, because he thought he's the Prophet of Allah, so he'll be the most knowledgeable. So Allah Ta'ala didn't like this answer. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Musa salam that there's a person living in the world that has in some elements more knowledge than you. So Musa salam wanted to see this person. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed him to go to near the corner where the two seas meet, and you will find him there. So Musa salam went and he found this person. His name was Khizr alayhi salam. Now Khizr alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with divinely wisdom, with some wisdom and some knowledge. So Musa said, I come to learn from you. But Khizr said, you won't be patient enough to bear me. He goes, no, I will, just teach me. So they said, okay, come along, but don't ask any questions. So they needed to cross a river, and they saw some poor people who had a boat. So they asked them, so the poor people, they said, come on board, we'll take you across. So both Musa and Khizr, they jumped onto this boat. And as they were coming onto the other side of the boat, Khizr, he damaged the boat. And Musa said, what are you doing? These are poor people. So Khizr got upset. I said to you, you won't be able to bear. So he goes, sorry, I won't ask you again. So then they were passing by some children who were playing. Well, Khizr, he got hold of a boy and killed him. Musa was surprised. What are you doing? You've just murdered somebody. So again, Khizr said, I said to you, you won't be able to tolerate, and you won't be able to be patient enough to understand what is happening. So he goes, sorry, I won't ask you again. So then they entered an area, and they were hungry and thirsty, and they asked the locals, if they can provide some food, some hospitality, but they all refused. So then Khidr saw that there's a wall is about to collapse. So what he did, he erected this wall and made sure this wall was straight. And Musa said, what are you doing? The people in the locality weren't good to you, and you've repaired their wall. So Khidr said, that's it, no more. I said to you, you can't bear the patience with me. So Khidr alayhi salam, he explained to Musa alayhi salam, the reason why I damaged that boat, because further along the river, there was a tyrant king who was stealing the boats that were fit and well, that were in good condition. And had the poor people had their boat been in a good condition, it would have been taken away. So I damaged it, and because of this, they kept their boat. The king didn't take their boat. The second occasion where I murdered that child, their parents were very pious, and this child wasn't obedient, and he would grow up not being obedient, and he wouldn't obey the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So instead, I murdered him so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him a better child in exchange. And the wall that I fixed, that house belonged to orphans who the parents they left the treasure behind the wall. And had that wall collapsed, the people in that locality, they would have stolen the wealth. So that's why I corrected the fence, I corrected the wall so that nobody can steal from them. So this was the wisdom that Allah Ta'ala bestowed upon Khizr alayhi salam. So anyway, Musa alayhi salam was a great prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Harun alayhi salam passed away 2 years before Musa alayhi salam. And when Musa alayhi salam was on his deathbed, the angel of death came towards Musa alayhi salam. And Musa alayhi salam, he slapped the angel of death. And the angel of death went back to Allah Ta'ala that this what happened. So then Allah Ta'ala ordered the angel of death to go and return back to Musa alayhi salam and tell him to place his hand on top of a calf, and however many hairs there are, that for each hair you will have 1 more year of your life extended. So when the angel of death returned back to Musa alayhi salam and said to Musa alayhi salam, you can place your hand on a calf, and however many hairs appear underneath your hand, that's how many years your life will be extended. For each hair, 1 year. And then Musa salam asked, what will happen after that? He said, you will have to die. So he said, if I'm going to pass away, then I might as well pass away now. So the angel of death took away his soul. So this was just some of the examples of Bani Israel, their mischievousness. As we go along the days, we're going to learn how extravagant they became, how foolish they became, and how they exceeded the boundaries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They killed the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed so many blessings upon Bani Israel. And one of the biggest blessings were majority of the prophets were from amongst the Bani Israel. And they didn't appreciate these prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that came to guide them. So may Allah Ta'ala give the tawfiq to follow and obey the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the messages of the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen.